This is RTP. This is RTP180.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the thing about my bio is I wanted to work with farmers on a big scale, so I started working with BASF, and they're like, you know what you would love? A commute to RTP every single day. My hardest thing tonight is going to be doing two things, holding a microphone and clicking at the same time. So I'm going to be touching on population shift trends that we've seen. I thought what better way as a native North Carolina person than to name it something as cliche as a saying like growing like a weed. Because I grew up about an hour east of Raleigh. When I thought about population and when they wanted me to talk for 5 minutes, I thought about what I've seen change in North Carolina and especially Raleigh in the last 20 years, 30 years. My calculations, I found out, I was a lot older than I expected when I started putting this presentation together. So a little bit about myself. Who am I? I grew up on a farm. That's me. My dad was a logger and a farmer, so I grew up in a world where we put things in the ground, we tended to it, we harvested it, and to me, that always stuck with me of watching somebody not only produce food and fiber for ourselves, but for everybody else. So yeah, I went all in on agriculture. I have 2 environmental degrees. My dad thought that was going to lead to unemployment, so luckily I made a successful living out of it because agriculture and environmental assessment and environmental needs go hand in hand. And I found my way to BASF because I worked with farmers in North Carolina for about 8 years. You don't get far with this accent. You gain credibility when you show up in overalls sounding like this. And I thought, what better way could I expand my love than to work with people on a national scale? So now at BASF, I work with rice farmers. Rice. The guy before me was from Illinois, so the people in Arkansas were really happy to see me coming. I married the son of a farmer and a teacher. That's my husband driving the tractor. That wasn't a photo op. That was a tractor that functioned. He was 8 years old. His dad was a farmer. His mom was a public school teacher. And this is the era of North Carolina when school did not start until tobacco harvest was over. So boy, have times changed. We get snow days now. Didn't have those back when I was a kid. So what people would think as a very ordinary picture of my husband and my family is funny to me, and I pick on my husband because we live in Raleigh, and this photo to me looks just as average as it can possibly look. But we laugh because if you'd asked us 10 years ago, right when we got married, what were we going to do? We were going to work in agriculture, we were going to live in the country, and go to the city only when we needed to do something fun. And now we walk to Target, we let our children play on fake grass in North Hills, which is painful, by the way, and we look at how our lives have changed. We both work in agriculture, but we found ourselves in a very metropolitan area. And for us, Raleigh was the best big, small city to be in. I can be back home in an hour. I don't think of it as sitting in gridlock. I think of it as taking time to think about Raleigh. And I look at all the people, and I can't help but wonder, where are they going? Because there's only so many buildings up here. So I can't help but think how rain makes everybody have a wreck. But I think about all the games we can go to and watch the Hurricanes on the weekends. And I think about the museums I can take my children to. And I can think about the education that I can afford them by living in a place like Raleigh. I am torn. Out of both of our families, we're the only ones that left the farm. So I am torn. My heart still stays in the country, and then I do have a love now after 5 years for Raleigh. But when I think about what I do on a daily basis working with farmers and why sometimes now I like Raleigh. I don't mind the traffic. I don't mind literally being 17 feet away from my neighbor. But the things that I miss is growing up in a place where there were more animals than people. There are times where I'm like, I could use a little bit more space. This was a traffic jam. Oh, the drama has now been lost. This was a traffic jam when I grew up. It lasted 37 seconds. You passed the tractor, and you got where you needed to go. It took you 40 minutes to get there, but there was no cars in front of you. Very different than now. But when I think about Raleigh and I think about population, what are some of the things that people crave? I think about me now, mid-30s, working mom, busy. I live and die by these companies. Convenience. I use all of these, I'm not going to say weekly, but it's really close to weekly. And even things like high-speed internet, a lot of us take for granted high-speed internet. I can drive 57 minutes east, and I can't load an Instagram story. And it's so painful. There's no cell phone service. There's certainly no high-speed internet. And I even went to the Outer Banks, and I'm trying to Uber Eats, and they don't have Uber Eats, and I'm like, where am I living right now? So when I come back to Raleigh, even somebody who loves to drive a tractor in the summer and keep her southern roots, I love the conveniences of what happens in the city and metropolitan areas. But that made me ask myself, where is everyone going? I know where I'm going. I know where my family went. I know why we stayed here. But where is everyone else going when you look at the United States? So according to the USDA, if you look at all the gray areas, those are metropolitan counties, so closer to the city. And when you look at the green areas, those are counties that they see populations leaving, but not coming back to. So those are going to be more of your rural areas, and the orange represents, the orangish-red color, is going to be counties that are also having people move in. And as you can see, a lot of those are populating around those metropolitan areas. Raleigh and Wake County is a perfect example of this. Anybody that grew up or has lived here in the past 20 years can remember what Holly Springs looked like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I mean, now Holly Springs is like Cary Part 2, and Apex is Cary Part 2 too. I mean, everything is starting to bleed outside of these metropolitan areas because people are trying to find the things that they still love, but in more new, convenient ways. I love it here because if I want to leave Raleigh, I can be in no man's land in 45 minutes. Not on Friday. You're not getting out of Wake County in 45 minutes on a Friday. But I love everything that a bigger city has to offer, but I can also find other things outside of that. For me, especially, when my children want to go play on the fake grass, I want them to know where their food comes from. To me, that was one of the things that really made me love what my father did and what my grandfather did, is knowing I didn't just go to Harris Teeter to get the fruit that I wanted. And I didn't just happen to go by the meat section to pick up hamburgers without knowing where that food came from. So trying to let them know where that food comes from is one of the most important things to me. So by 2050, the population is going to be about 9 billion people globally. I feel like I keep harping on this moment. I read something that like 100 people a week, how many people are moving to Raleigh? It's a lot. I mean, I feel like that 9 billion is going to get here very quickly when you look on a global scale. But flashback to that map, there's not a lot of people moving to those green counties and saying, you know what, I think I'm going to be a farmer. I'd love to feed everybody. So BASF works to provide those solutions and technology because we have to feed more people with less farmers. And then, every time the bell rings, you get a free beer, by the way. BASF also, on a local standpoint, we want to participate in the things that poverty and people going to bed at night hungry is not just on a global scale or in a third world country, it's in the counties that surround us. Things have changed a lot in the last 100 years in agriculture from a technology perspective and from a farmer perspective. This is a farmer making the comment of how things have changed in less than 100 years. Where they used to use horses and plows over 100 acres, they're now covering thousands of acres in tractors, all within the last 100 years. And for me, when you think about your food and you think about agriculture, the takeaway that I want you to have is, yes, I work for a corporate company. I sit in my office right across the street. I fly to Arkansas to be on a farm now. But the people that raise our food and the people that are trying to feed our population look like these people. This is Leslie Ray Kelly. Her husband was a farmer. Her children loved to be on the farm, and she recently stopped doing her corporate job so she could also be on the farm. But it's these farm families. People aren't choosing to go into agriculture. It's always usually generations of people that are left to feed our population, and that's how we're hoping to get all of the secure and sustainable food of the population. Ooh, I'm getting spotty. This is my contact information. I'm over my time, but just enjoy your good food, enjoy the good beer, and support our wheat and rice farmers, and thank you so much.